Hello and welcome to the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything that gets you from here to there. I am the traffic anchor and also the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber. And if you would like to be a part of the program, you can always give me a call on the listener hotline, 303-832-0217. That number is on the description or in the description of this show, as well as all my other contact information. If you need to get a hold of me for any reason, any question, anytime, boom, there it is. Today on the show, I'm going to have a long conversation with Mike Kucharski. And Mike is the co-owner, and he's also the vice president of JKC Trucking out of Chicago. And Mike and I are going to be talking about trucking and the trucking industry and what's it like to be a truck driver right now in these days. And if you're looking to for a job that just requires you to sit and drive, then it's really a good time to be a truck driver, as they're seeing some of the highest wages trucking companies have been paying out really for a long, long time. Yes, there are challenges with being a truck driver, and it isn't for everybody, and it's, a challenging job in some aspects, but it's also pretty good pay right now for what you're doing, which is basically sitting and driving. There are a ton of issues I want to get to Mike with and talk to him about. But first, I wanted to answer a question that was sent to the Driving You Crazy inbox. And of course, you can send anything. You can always look for Driving You Crazy. You just search Driving You Crazy, KMGH, or my name, Jason Luber with a Y, Jason with a Y. And you can... you'll see all the stories pop up. The link is here on the in the description of the show as well. But you can find all my Driving You Crazy stories, and you could also send me a question, a Driving You Crazy question. Hey, what this is getting to me, and what's going on here? Well, it was Aaron from the town of Morrison, just outside of Denver, wrote to me and said, "What's driving you crazy? Why hasn't anybody cleared up the huge potato mess on Highway 285 near Sims Street? That crash happened a long time ago." A long time ago indeed, Aaron. Now, the big mess you're talking about, it all started on the night of August 6th. So from now, it was about a month, a little bit more than a month and a half ago. A truck driver was hauling thousands of loose potatoes, and he was heading northbound on Highway 285 here in Colorado on the west side of Metro Denver, and just east of C-470, his brakes on the trailer caught fire. We see a lot of young drivers and inexperienced drivers get into brake fires because they're riding the brakes down the hills. Now, according to the West Metro Fire Department, the driver saw smoke coming from the trailer. He pulled over right before that Sims exit, and he called the fire department just as the truck is bursting into flames. The driver was able to get out. He was unhurt. That's good. But it took a few minutes for the firefighters to get there, and what they found was a fully engaged truck fire with a ruptured fuel tank and potatoes in the truck. The West Metro hazmat team said they were able to contain the spill, soak up most of the diesel fuel. But according to the Lakewood Police Department, the firefight was going okay until the trailer collapsed. Right in the center, boom. And it spilled the potatoes all over the highway, these loose potatoes. Now, the truck, along with all the loose potatoes, was a total loss. Officers on scene said at the time it was really late, well after midnight. They were all tired from battling the fire, so they all ordered the drivers there, the tow drivers or whoever had the front loader, just to push all the potatoes and some of them burned and some of them not, all to the side of the road, as well as some parts of the semi, and then try to figure it out in coming days. And the next morning they decided to name the pile Potato Hill. So I named the story Potato Hill, of course, as well. Now, the responding tow truck driver, he helped clear the wreck, towed away the remnants of the cab, the trailer, pushed the rest of the wreck, including the spilled potatoes, off the highway, leaving that very long pile of spuds and other debris on the right shoulder and in the grass of northbound Highway 285. Well, in Colorado, as well as in most other states, after a crash, it's the responding tow truck driver and the company, they are responsible for the cleanup. The removal of all the vehicles, all the debris, any of the stuff to sweep up the stuff that was damaged, all the glass and all the plastic parts, pick up bumpers, all that stuff is supposed to be done by the responding tow truck driver. But since police directed the on-scene tow drivers just to clear the mess to the side of the road and wait for a later date, the decision was made to leave Potato Hill in place, and I guess until they figured it out. Well, the issue now is that later date was up in the air until just a few days ago. Now, I was told by the manager of Ace Towing out of Lakewood that they were waiting for the trucking company TRX Express out of Bolingbrook, Illinois, to settle the matter with their insurance company before starting their part of the cleanup, because the tow company wants to get paid before they would start any of the work. So that matter must have been settled over the weekend, in the last couple of days, after repeated calls from me. The manager at Ace Trucking there, or Towing, told me that they most likely used a front loader just to scoop up the remnants of the Potato Hill, because it was a rotting mess, into a truck and then hauled it away to the dump. I mean, there were thousands of potatoes rotting on the side of the highway. Some of them still had a potato shape weeks later, but they were becoming shriveled. They gave off an especially bad smell that I experienced firsthand. So I am glad that most of them are gone. But when I checked this morning, the front loader, somebody, when they came and cleaned it up, they cleaned up most of it. There's still a few potatoes out there, and there's still some goo, if you will, out there. And there's still a big tarp of plastic out. I think it's probably over the hazardous material stuff, because the truck fire and the fuel spill left a fair amount of hazardous materials on the road. And in Potato Hill and in Colorado, and it's probably the same in most other states, when there's a significant spill of hazardous materials, the first responders use a certain set of disposal guidelines and documented practices to help guide them through those initial stages of that process of cleanup. And then later on, it will help them to hire a pre-designated private response contractor to handle the spill. And Potato Hill, in this case, it's Custom Environmental Services in Arvada, Colorado, that's supposed to take care of the hazardous materials that were left over. Well, a manager at CES tells me they aren't sure when their part of the cleanup is going to start. They were waiting for some financial and legal issues to be resolved with TRX Express Trucking first. And they also had to wait for the Ace Towing to get their part of the work done. So they didn't really speculate on when that might happen. Obviously, when I went by, most of the potatoes are gone, so now it's up to the Custom Environmental Services Company to come out there and pick it up. They said it would probably just be a straightforward process to remove all the contaminated soil, test the ground for any contaminants, and then move on. And I've contacted the DOT in Colorado a couple of times, and they told me the towing company and environmental company, they're really in charge of the cleanup, not them. But I did press them on the issue, asking how long they would wait for a matter like this to be resolved before they step in and scoop up the spuds. They told me they would have to get back to me on that. So I'll bring you that maybe next time and give you an update when they get back to me. But bottom line here is that Potato Hill, for the most part, is clear, but there's still some cleanup left to go. So there you have it. Speaking of trucks, the saying goes, if it's on the store shelves, then it came in a truck. And have you noticed that some of the things on the shelves aren't there? It's a tough time for the trucking industry, trying to find drivers as well as deal with the normal every week trucking issues like parking, time of service, working conditions, pay. I wanted to revisit these issues truckers and the trucking industry are dealing with, so I invited Mike Kucharski, the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking, to take us on the open road and see what it's like and what the issues they're dealing with. Mike, thanks for being here on the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast.
Jason, thank you for having me on your show.
So, Mike, before we get into the issues of the industry, let's learn more about Mike. How did you get into trucking and owning a trucking company?
So, it started when my father bought his first truck, and he was a owner-operator, had 1 truck, 2 truck, 3 truck, 4 trucks. It went from 40 to 50 to over 200, and here we are at JKC. It's a family business. It's a family business, and it's been going on since, I want to say my father bought his first truck in 77, and I was born in 78. So, yeah, it's a lifelong business that I've been in.
But, you know, that's really the American story. You have somebody who just bought a truck, started driving it, started making deliveries, and then was able to parlay that into another one and another one and another one. So it really is the American dream.
100%, 100%. And my father, by trade was a furrier, tailor of sort. And, when he came to America, he escaped communism. He hated communism and he came to America for freedom. At one point, he started as a furrier. He had one store, two store, three stores. And then one day his accountant says, hey, you should invest in another business just in case the fur business, takes a dive. And it did. You said, as you said, the American dream was started with the trucking industry. And after all that, it's history.
Do you service the entire country? I can see you're based in Chicago. Do you serve the entire country or just part of it?
So what we specialize is something called LTL, which means less than truckload. So let's say you have one box, one pallet, two pallets. We'll take it. We go from the whole Midwest to the whole West Coast, including Colorado, multiple trucks weekly in Colorado. And we also from the West Coast back into the Midwest, we transport food. We have two terminals in California, one in Northern California in Stockton, California, and one in Southern California. It's in Santa Fe Springs. It's East LA. So everything we do is refrigerated, frozen, perishables, produce, you name it. We almost mostly hauled it.
So you have to get all that stuff to its destination, well, pretty quickly, because like you said, you have stuff that is all perishable, so time is of the essence for you guys.
Correct, especially the perishables and the produce, because obviously the produce, the second you pick that product, that produce is rotting and has a short shelf life. And let's say, a lot of produce we haul is from California. So it's going to take us 3 days of transit to get from California back. That's 3 days less. It has a shelf life, so it's very crucial that we keep the wheels rolling.
Well, and it's got to be tough then for you to find drivers, find workers that can drive from California, let's say all the way back to Chicago in 3 days, because since the pandemic started, it's been hard for almost any company to find workers. And obviously trucking, not just what you do at your trucking company, but across the trucking industry, there have been really a lower number of drivers out and about. But when I'm driving down the highway, I see what seems like a bunch of trucks out there. So it doesn't maybe seem like a shortage while I'm driving, but that's not the case, right?
Yeah, so you see a lot of trucks out there, but what happened is we were short drivers pre-pandemic, and the pandemic's only amplified the shortage of truck drivers. Currently, right now, the U.S. is short. We're short 20 to 25% of truck drivers across the board, and that's really a lot. It's killing us because that, and then especially over the last week, Labor Day, I had even more drivers short because everyone wants to take some time off. So I was like 40 to 45% short of drivers on my fleet. And, people in America got to eat. I have customers calling me every day begging me to take the product. And I have to say no because, I don't have the power to move that product. And I don't want to sit on people's product because that would just be unfair.
So how do you think you can attract more drivers? Is this an issue where you can give better benefits, or how does the industry attract more drivers, and so we can, I guess, get rid of this problem?
Yeah, great question. So what we have been doing, pre-pandemic, truck drivers, long distance truck drivers get paid per mile. And I want to say JQC's always paid above average per mile. And when the pandemic happened, we even increased pay another 5 cents. But also all our competition has increased the pricing. You could probably see, nonstop there's bonuses, and everybody's fighting for the same pool of truck drivers. So pay was the first the way of tackling it. We bought a bunch of new equipment. We're always looking for, we have a lot of women drivers, and we're looking to get more women drivers, especially women drivers that have been affected by the pandemic. They lost their job. They want to try something new. We've been buying new trucks. Automatics, so it would be easier for less experienced drivers to come into and start driving. But the only problem is that the dealer Volvo has shut down production of trucks. They ran out of the chips to make the trucks, and it's come to a screeching halt. You couldn't buy or even place an order right now for new trucks if you wanted to, because the manufacturers are waiting for these crucial components to come in, and also calculating all the rising cost of steel that goes into the trucks. So it's not an option right now. So yeah, that was another way of tackling it, and just one day at a time.
I'm speaking with Mike Kucharski. He's the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking out of Chicago. We're talking about trucking industry and some of the challenges the truckers and the trucking industry is facing. You just mentioned that computer chip issue, and I think there's also an issue with replacement parts also affecting trucking companies. And I also heard about problems with these diesel exhaust fluid sensors that are leading to thousands of trucks nationwide being disabled and parked. So it's almost a cascading problem.
Correct, correct. Oh man, you just hit all the big problems on the head right now. Starting with the parts, yeah. For example, we've been waiting for water pumps to come in from Japan since April, and they're still not here because they're being imported. They come through the port of Long Beach. Port of Long Beach is backed up. They're also short workers, and we've been just buying these pumps out each state to state. But at one point, when we run out of this pump and these trucks break, or even the competing trucks break, we're all going to have to park these trucks because we're going to be out of these parts. We're not going to be able to continue, which is going to be, that's when it's going to, a very big tidal wave of disaster is going to come, and chaos, because not only are we going to have short drivers, we're going to start having short equipment. And you also mentioned, the DPF, which I don't know if the people understand what the DPF system is. It's a particular system that catches, the carbon that the diesel trucks give off, the black smoke, as you say. It catches it and kind of recycles it, and kind of what it does is kind of clog up the engine or the filter, and then you have to clean it. This system is a great idea, but I think it was pushed out a little bit prematurely, by the EPA. And what happened was the system failed. It failed. It broke. It got redesigned. It's still failing. I probably have one or two trucks having issues right now on the road with the system as we speak. And it's great for the environment, but what it does is it costs companies like myself more money for repairs, and repairs on the road are only skyrocketing. It's just more and more, and some guys just are not even capable of fixing it, which is the problem. And all these costs get pushed to the end user, the American people, which it sucks, and it delays these shipments. Let's say we have a truckload coming of oranges from California, and we break down. Not only it takes 3 days to get it from California to, let's say, Illinois, we're broke down for another 3 days. So that's 3 days of less product they could sell. That's going to go in the garbage.
What's interesting is that when it seemed like this tidal wave of issues with workers and with the overall economy and the costs that are involved, as you're mentioning, that is that there was this push to get the $15 minimum wage and get a lot more companies paying a higher wage. But when you do that, what happens is that money is then it's going to cost more for companies like yours to pay workers, and then it's costs more money for the supplier that you're trying to get these parts from. They're more money, so that's going to cost you more money. So you have to raise your shipping prices, which raises the prices for that orange shipment that I'm going to buy over there at the grocery store. So that's why we're seeing all these prices of just about everything, whether it comes to meat or any kind of food products, just about anything. The costs are going up higher. So it's almost a wash when you say, oh yeah, we're going to have higher income levels here. People are going to get more for their minimal work, but everything else is costing higher. So it's basically a wash. Is that what you're running into?
Yeah, it's and the cost that you're talking about, the catalyst that causing this cost to skyrocket. Fuel is going up in trucking, and obviously for everybody, and gasoline is up. Our insurance is up. We're paying extra for labor. We're on top of that, we have the labor shortage. Not only in the trucking industry, in the rail industries, in the ports. All these employees that were furloughed employees, are missing out of these companies because some of these companies said, "Hey, listen, you're furloughed till further notice," and they found jobs other places, which is killing us. Obviously, and the stimulus checks is also affecting us because those people are, we need all those workers. What we need is all the hands on deck in America to get back to work, to get this economy rolling again. That's our biggest problem. I'm happy that hopefully they're going to end this month. This month is when they end the stimulus checks, right?
Yes.
In September. And then that would be good because as you said, the $15, the way things are going, that $15 is not going to be enough. Who knows if $30 is going to be enough the way things are going if we don't start to equalize, get back to where we were pre-pandemic.
So what do you think is going to be happening here in the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years if we don't get more truckers in trucks and bring some of these costs down? What are going to be the ramifications for the regular folks who are trying to go to the grocery store and pick out something for dinner?
Well, what's going to happen is I don't see, capacity picking up or catching up at least till 2022. And why I say that is we're short on capacity right now, and here comes the holiday seasons, and the holiday season is a big push. There's all these articles saying, will the product be here on time for the holidays? And, we're trying to climb out of this whole black hole called COVID. Boom, we get knocked down by the holiday push, and it's just going to push it farther, and it's going to even make it worse, especially if we're, like you were saying earlier, if we just start getting these parts for these trucks, or what a lot of people don't understand is, a lot of goods are produced here in America, but a lot of these ingredients and parts they get is from overseas, so they can't do what they do because they are, out of products. One of my customers, I have a bread customer and two bread customers, and they are way behind on product because they're having difficult time buying gluten right now. Gluten is a hot commodity, and they can't make enough product.
I'm speaking with Mike Kucharski. He's the co-owner, vice president of JKC Trucking in Chicago. We're talking about the trucking industry and some of the challenges they're facing. So, are we going to be able to, or are we going to see possible shortages at grocery stores, at retail stores, at the Walmart? Are we going to see shortages because things just aren't able to get out here in the country with the trucks aren't moving them?
Yeah, so number one, you're going to see, I believe you're going to definitely see some shortages, and especially at the Walmart this holiday season. But another thing you're going to see is, these goods that these companies are making, let's say they used to make like 4 different brands of something, items, they're going to make only 1 or 2. So your selection is going to be also smaller to pick from, and that's not gonna catch up until, I'm guessing, and I hope wrong, maybe 2023. Some people are saying for the next 10 years, some analysts, which is crazy. I maybe don't agree with that, but it's definitely gonna hurt us for the next, everybody said 2020 is gonna be better, 2021 is gonna be better, excuse me. I don't see that. I'm thinking, maybe 2022, 2023, because we just keep pushing this back and back and back.
The pandemic has forced a lot of businesses out of business, especially restaurants. And it's been happening also in a lot of other retail stores. Some other stores have all small businesses have been closing. Have you seen that also happening now in the trucking industry, as they just can't attract workers, can't keep up? They're deciding I can't keep doing it this way, so I'm just going to close shop.
Yeah, it is scary how many trucking companies I see closing, because right now we're in a pandemic. I don't think we're out of, the rough waters, and these companies closing is not helping, because, like I said, we need all hands on deck to get us out of this hole, and that, these companies are running out of money, running out of drivers. I have JKC itself. We're looking for drivers as we speak. I have at least 10, 15 trucks parked because I can't get drivers behind the wheel, and when you get to that point, you're going to have to start selling trucks or shrink the company to survive, because if not, you're going to end up like these companies out of business. And right now, we've been fortunate, to because we're in food and keep the wheels rolling, even with our smaller crew, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, to give you guys an example, on Labor Day, I was short 40 to 45% of my truck drivers, which is huge.
As you said earlier, you say that trucking is basically a male-dominated industry, and you're trying to attract more women. How do you get more women to want to be a truck driver and get them interested in driving?
Well, yeah. So, how's this? Trucking is a lifestyle, and we have a lot of women drivers that came from other countries. We just respect. You got to respect the drivers. Number one, number two, the women drivers here. We take consideration for them. By obviously respecting them. We try to get equipment that fits them, because when they built the truck, they built it for like a big cowboy, with a manual transmission. The truck driver you saw 10 years ago was this big burly guy with a beard, and that's not what you see now on the interstate. You see these women, so they had to redesign the trucks to fit the women also, because it's not all men driving these big rigs. So we're trying to bring women in by the pay, by having treating them like family, and by the new equipment, and especially providing these women that, let's say you lost your job due to the pandemic, we'll train these women for a new job.
I'm speaking with Mike Kucharski, the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking in Chicago, about issues in the trucking industry. Some states, including Colorado, have lowered the age that you can get a commercial driver's license now from 21 down to 18. What they're trying to do is attract more drivers to the industry, but at the same time, is it putting more dangerously inexperienced drivers on the road?
I want to answer this question, but first I want to concentrate. You guys got to understand that the truck drivers, I support lowering the age, because 57% of the drivers are over 45 years old on the road right now. 23% of them are over 55. So, we have the demographic of truck drivers are much older. They're going to be retiring soon. And, to bring in more truck drivers, we're going to have to lower the age. I support it. These young men, women are going to need a job. But what's going to happen is they're going to have a little bit less experience. And yes, there will be a little bit more, if I had to guess, there'll be more accidents, because we're putting younger drivers behind the seat. It's just like when you're 16, they put you behind the wheel. You don't know what you're doing. You barely could drive down the road bumping things until you learn to be a good driver. It's going to be kind of it's I hate to say it, but it's going to be like it's going to be a bumpy ride. But that's our only solution, and our other solution is automation. Automate these trucks. Everybody's talking, automated trucks. I support automated trucks, but we'll have the same problem as we have, as you mentioned, with the younger drivers, because automation still has not been perfected. Tesla, gave it a good shot, and they had they changed it. And these trucks, they're still developing this technology. The technology is not there. One of the biggest issues that, I noticed from, these automated trucks, they have multiple cameras, and they see by something called machine vision, right? And the machine vision is they're looking at the lines in the road. So where are they, by the lines? But the problem is, if the lines are faded, if there's snow, ice, or my favorite season, construction season, where there's no lines, these trucks won't see, and they always post these great videos, hey, the Budweiser truck drove, 700 miles with the driver in the back. But yeah, it was a beautiful September day. It was sunny, there was a great road, but that's not how it is. When these trucks are going to have to cross these big mountains like you guys have in Colorado or in Wyoming, this truck is going to have to, really be able to see, make decisions, so it doesn't cause catastrophes and hurt people.
Yeah, and you mentioned young drivers here in Colorado. I've seen numerous crashes. I think I've seen more crashes in the last couple of years with some of the younger drivers in this state, especially because there is a technique to drive up and down these mountain highways. And some of these younger drivers haven't learned that just yet. And so we see a lot of brake fires. We see out of control drivers, some that have to use those emergency ramps and then drive into the the dirt or the gravel to slow down. So it's do you think that it's worth it still to have some of these younger drivers on the road, just because we need drivers, even though they might tend, as you said, when we're younger, we're going to have more issues?
Yeah, I think it's good, because these drivers are going to need these young people, young men and women, are going to need a job. And when you're 18, you don't know what profession you want to kind of go to. You're kind of lost in space. At least I was, and truck driving gives you an option. Truck driving is a lifestyle. You got to love it. I love taking long drives. I like being on the road. And if these, young men and women like this profession and they stay, it's only going to, number one, it's going to be, they're going to be essential workers. They're going to have great pay. And it's, they have a job for forever, pretty much. to drive a truck, which is, I mean, how's this? Of course, there'll be some people that come in and say, "Hey, this is not for me." That's good, but it opens the door for a younger generation of truck drivers to come in because we desperately need it.
Take me behind the wheel. So, like you said, you like driving, you like doing long distance drives. So, take me behind the wheel. What really is it like on a day by day, hour by hour basis in the truck? Is it super boring? How do you entertain yourself? And what kind of a pay can you expect when you're driving across the country?
You know, that's a so most of the motoring public, like you said, does not like the truck drivers because they're slow, they're in their way, they're constantly getting cut off. As soon as you get away from the cities, you're out in the open, you're running, and there's nobody cutting you off or trying to, you know, accidentally get you in an accident. It's great. It's great. I mean, I like it. It's calming. Like I said, it's a lifestyle. You wake up every day in a different city. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, but it's never boring. You know what I mean? It's never boring. Sometimes it's scary when you get cut off. Multiple times, but it's just a lifestyle. I think it's great.
Right, but when you're driving every day, do you just pull over for if you need to go for 3 hours and you have a bathroom break? And what do you do about eating? And are all those just regular lifestyle issues? Like if you have, like right now, you probably have an office job since you're running the whole company, and you can just gotta get up and move around and walk around and kind of stretch your legs a little bit, but you can't really do that in a truck, can you?
No, no. So what has happened, you have to have, so truck drivers are regulated by something called hours of service. So let's say me and you tomorrow jump in a truck, each in a truck, we're going to have to log in and, go on duty, do our pre-trip of the truck and go on duty. And after that happens, the clock starts ticking. We have like 11 hours of driving. We have to do, take a mandatory hour break, and it's for lunch. You have to take these breaks and you could go on off duty, which kind of slows the hours down. But after you click in, you're kind of chasing the clock, because let's say we go out and we start driving for like 4 hours and we're both a little bit tired and say, "Hey man, we're gonna take an hour nap and then we're gonna tackle this again." You can't really do that, because if you do take an hour nap, it kind of bites into your hours. So then when you do come back from your nap time or resting, you have less hours to drive, which sucks. So you always hear this phrase, drivers are chasing the clock, chasing the clock. I mean, they don't have that much luxury, because, it's when you're tired, you have to run, or reverse, when you can't sleep and you want to drive a little longer, you're limited to drive. So that's what the big deal with the truck drivers is, the hours of service. You know what I mean? And honestly, I think the hours of service need to be re-regulated, because in the last 3 years, I think they changed them 3 times. One of the things I hate about the trucking industry, it's overregulated. They put in all these regulations for our safety. They put all these, hours of service because it was supposed to, save lives, but did the complete opposite. But nobody wants to talk about that, and now they're kind of scrambling. What do we do now? What do we do now? They're just putting little bandages on it instead of saying, "Hey, why don't we go back to what used to work? Or how about we, go to the trucking industry and ask them, how to do this, so we could educate them." Because these people that made these rules, they weren't in trucks. They just, said, "Hey, for safety, boom, it's on agenda. Let's make it happen." And that hurts us, because like you said, we're running this perishables and frozen foods, and that time is money, and especially in the food industry, because that we're hauling perishables.
And one of the other issues that some of the drivers face are parking issues, trying to find a place to rest or find a place to park and spend the night somewhere. That has still got to be a huge issue when you're coming up on your hours of service and you got to find a place to park and you can't, and then you're just going to have to stop on the side of the road or find an exit ramp somewhere.
Yeah, it's horrible, because now that you're running, you have to think way ahead of time, and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to stop, let's say in Denver at a truck stop," right? And you get to Denver and a truck stop, and the truck stop's full. You got nowhere to go, and you got this, time clock ticking, and these drivers have to go to the next area, find a field, find a side road, sleep on the side of the highway, which is completely dangerous, because nobody wants to sleep there. But when you have no choice, And you got to do it quick, because if you don't do it, your time runs out. Boom, here's your violation. Why are you over? You know what I mean? And now you have to make a little note saying, hey, couldn't find parking at a truck stop, how to continue on. But that violation doesn't go away. It just shows that you're in violation, even though you did nothing wrong, and it's getting crazy because these truck stops are treating this as a business. Now you have to pay for parking, if there's even parking to stay at. And that shouldn't be the way it is. Truck drivers should be able to park for free, and have plenty of parking. You guys have to remember, these are human beings. They live inside that cab is their home. And everybody's like, well, they travel across different lines, and the rules change in this state and this change. I mean, one of the things that doesn't change is that square feet inside their sleeper is still their home. You have to understand this. So, just try to remember what the ultimate sacrifice truck drivers do for the people. With these regulations, especially.
You just mentioned the danger in some of these areas. These drivers might want to pull over and get some rest or get some sleep. Has the political climate also made it more dangerous to be a driver?
I'll tell you this, it got very hairy when the defunding of the police was going on, because obviously you saw in the news, the drivers were being attacked. People were trying to hijack the drivers. You guys have to understand, when you're a truck driver, you don't have security. You are your own security. And the drivers, rely very heavily on the police as somebody to come and save them. For example, me and you tomorrow, let's say we jump in a truck and we have to go to downtown Portland to deliver a truckload of COVID tests, and we run into some trouble. Who are we going to call to help us? Who's going to protect us? And I'm glad that all that violence stopped, because, drivers are already saying, we're not going to go. We're not going to go. And I would love the government to finally tackle this situation, make some kind of laws to protect the drivers, that you cannot block the highway and jump out in front of them and pull him out of the truck because he pulled down the wrong street, wrong highway. These people are fathers, mothers. All they're doing is trying to support their family, and they get beaten by protesters. It's completely unfair. We need more rules to protect our drivers.
I'm speaking with Mike Kucharski. He's the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking in Chicago. We're talking about the trucking industry and some of the issues that they face every day and every week, and especially since the pandemic. Speaking of that, how will the federal government vaccine mandate resonate through the trucking industry? I'm thinking that it's going to be different between owner-operators and maybe the trucking companies.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a hot topic right now. So the day after Biden announced the vaccine mandates, I said in an interview that if you force people to take the vaccine, it's going to have the reverse effect. And now here we are, a few days after Biden puts the mandates in place. Bloomberg News puts out a report showing the number of people getting a first dose of COVID-19 vaccines in the U.S. is declining again in September compared to August. Is it a coincidence? I think not. We and I at JGC, we support the vaccine. We support educating our employees to take the vaccine, but we also support freedom of choice. The federal vaccine mandate will make more people hesitant, not less. It's going to have a reverse effect. When you talk to my truck drivers or people who live in rural states, they're used to operating without the federal government telling them what to do. When you force somebody, that's when you're going to get the biggest resistance. And, the only thing we could do is, get the drivers to do it by education, showing them the science. They always talk about showing us the science. I feel they didn't show enough science, or I didn't see any science at all when they did the mandate, which would help us talk these drivers, the remaining drivers, to get vaccinated.
Well, many independent owner-operators, they're going to fall obviously under the 100-employee limit because it's just either an individual person or maybe a couple, a husband and wife team. So they're usually fiercely independent drivers, and they can go that route where they don't have to get vaccinated. But a company like yours that presumably has over 100 employees, how do you deal with some of the folks that don't want to get vaccinated, and you're already short drivers already?
I mean, the main reason these drivers do not want to take the vaccine because number one, they're afraid to take the vaccine because they're afraid of the vaccine side effects. There's I would say a lack of trust in the vaccine, and like I said, where is the science? And you guys have to understand that a lot of these drivers already got COVID, not once, twice. I have a driver that got COVID twice, and he was vaccinated. So what's the point of this vaccine? But if he gets it twice and he's vaccinated, there's no stopping it. When these drivers get COVID a couple times, they're like, why would I need a vaccine when I already have natural immunity? And it's hard to change their perspective.
Many economists say that the best way to read how the economy is doing is to look at the trucking industry as a whole and what consumers are going to be trying to buy, especially in the next couple of weeks. But with all of the issues with the supply chain, as we've seen, what do you see that we're going to have widespread issues this holiday season and into early next year with just trying to get regular stuff?
Yeah, we're already short as is, because customers are calling me, hey, take this product, and I can't take it. And this is happening across the whole spectrum of transportation. There will be, I would say, this holiday, there will be bare shelves. There will be empty shelves where you have certain goods. Hopefully it won't be like the toilet paper crisis that happened, but there will be products that'll be missing, and they're saying, hey, even furthermore, they're saying buy your gifts now because there might not be no toys to buy for your kids, which is really scary. You know what I mean? We're coming off this pandemic, going through all these bad times, and here comes Christmas, and you can't even buy the kids toys, which is crazy.
Yeah, giving a kid a gift card isn't quite the same as giving them what they really want,
Exactly.
Yeah, Santa doesn't go in gift cards, I don't think. Let's let's talk. You mentioned earlier electric trucks and you mentioned autonomous trucks, but let's talk like electric trucks and hydrogen trucks. I've been talking about that the last couple of episodes, and it seems like in the trucking industry, it would be a lot better for the trucking companies to use hydrogen trucks that are going to be on electric. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to electric with less maintenance and those sort of things, but I mean, less environmental, but more really cost effectiveness because they really are easier to maintain. The electric vehicles are. So would you like to see the plug-in electric trucks or hydrogen electric trucks, as that's the way the industry is heading?
I'm supporting what you're saying, Jason, because I support. So we put in JEC a deposit with Nikola, and I think that's how you say it, right? And Nikola is a hydrogen generator that powers the batteries and electric engines on a truck. The plug-in, I don't think it's going to work because the batteries, unless we come up with some, very great battery that works in, minus 20 degrees or 140 degrees or in elevation, because we still don't know what they're going to do in elevation. The generator is a win-win. Hydrogen, generator, all it gives off is a couple droplets of water. But my thing is, just like you mentioned the DPF systems, let's not prematurely, throw this into the market, because let's say we, start driving these trucks and here comes a big freeze and all the trucks in America are crippled, or like a quarter, whatever would be crippled would be horrible. Last year, Texas froze over. I had so many trucks stranded in Texas. They had literally ran out of fuel. They couldn't buy fuel. They were stranded, and we have to prepare. I don't want to be in that situation because it's not going to hurt the American people. It's going to hurt everybody.
Well, and if you look at a situation right now where you have a natural disaster, not only the freeze there in Texas, but the hurricane now in the Louisiana area, you didn't have power for either of them for multiple days. You're still seeing some areas in Louisiana without power. So you can't power a electric car or truck without power.
Yeah, that's a great idea. There's a great example. One example I just thought of right now is when Los Angeles was having those heat waves. First thing they did is they jumped on TV and they said, "Hey, don't plug in your electrical cars because the grid is overwhelmed. We can't handle it." And I was like, "Whoa, well, I mean," and California is a very big pushing the EPA, so that's great that we're have these electric cars and there's less pollution. But people have to live and do things, and to say, "Hey, look, move to this electric car because it's the future, it's the best thing ever," and then say, "Don't use it," it makes it questionable. I didn't like how that situation happened. It was just a bad situation.
And it's going to cost more money in the long run if they don't fix the grid and are able to generate more power as more electric vehicles are coming online. If you don't fix the grid and have more generating capacity, even if it is with fossil fuels for now, then you are, again, going to be just dead in the water and you're not going to be able to power those vehicles. I know how tough it is around here when because I own a Chevy Volt, which is, it's a battery car. And going up some of the mountains here, you just drain the battery really quickly as you are, using the gas the whole time heading up these hills.
Yeah. This is why I say these products have to be tested. Elevation, the heat, the cold, this all affects it. I mean, just dumping it into the market, is not going to be the solution. I mean, sometimes we need a solution that works. I mean, maybe it's not like completely bulletproof, but almost there. Because we're short drivers, and any setbacks with this new technology, we're already behind with our current technology. This is going to even put us even further back. What I mean? So going to these autonomous trucks might even put us even further back, because what's the point of that autonomous truck when it hits some bad weather and it breaks?
I'm speaking to Mike Kucharski. He's the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking out of Chicago. What's the average pay that you can get for driving a truck, either if it's local, let's say you're just a local delivery driver, or you're a long haul driver?
So long haul drivers make the best money. I mean, here at JKC, we pay 60 cents per mile, and then let's say you and I tomorrow jump in a truck and we go to Los Angeles and back. We're going to make about 4,000, a little bit over 4,000 miles at 60 cents. That's $2,400 or more. We're going to make $2,400 minimum, obviously pre-taxes. But that's so after taxes, let's say we make $1,600. I mean, that is a good paycheck for 6 days of work. It's hard work, but how's this? It's great pay.
Yeah, $1,600 a week is not bad, but especially for, that's a lot of driving across the country and back in just 6 days.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
and you don't get paid if you're not driving, though, right?
Correct. You know what I mean? Like we have some incentives, like if there's breakdown pay, if the truck is stranded there, or things like that we or layover pay we pay drivers. But yeah, if you're not driving, you're not making money, and that's why these drivers are so want to drive. They want to make as many miles as they can per day safely. You know what I mean? They don't want to their perception of a truck driver, which I hate this perception, is that truck drivers are up for 2-3 days running nonstop, and then they run over a bus full of kids. I'm like, that's not perception. Has that happened? Yes, it was a one-off situation, but that happened one time doesn't mean it's gonna happen to the whole industry. We should concentrate on that particular issue, not say, okay, it's not safe. They can't drive this long. They need a rest. And for each cause, there's an effect, and the effect is charging more for goods. All these goods get passed down to the end user, the American people. It hits them right in the wallet.
It reminds me when you were mentioned about the truckers running over a bus or whatever, that there is this one lawyer in Metro Denver, Colorado, that has famously he always puts out these commercials about being in a wreck. You call me and you'll get a check. And well, he has one that's for truckers. You see these big trucks and they are dangerous and they can wreck your life. And if you get in a wreck with one of these trucks, make sure you call me and you'll get a huge check.
Yeah, and that also, kills new truck drivers coming into the industry, because these lawyers are out there, these plaintiff lawyers out there to, cash in money on an accident. It could be like a legit accident. It could be the other person's fault. They pull in front of the truck hits them, something horrible happens, but you're still liable. And those lawyers, they sue the trucking companies, or you get this something called an atomic verdict. You'll lose a lawsuit, and they'll say, okay, the judge will be like, hey, JGC, so tomorrow, because this car pulled out in front of you, you hit them, and you didn't have a stop. You couldn't stop because it was just impossible. You're gonna have to pay out $52 million to these people. A company like mine does not have $52 million. There's nothing, it just automatically, we just close the doors. It's a lose-lose for everybody. And there's no laws, no legislation protecting us from these atomic verdicts, which is crazy. And these plaintiff lawyers, I'm sick of seeing the signs because, truck drivers are the American heroes. They're not a, meal ticket. Everybody thinks the trucking company is a big ham and everybody wants a slice. That's not the thing. We are part of the food supply chain. All these plaintiff lawyers are doing is, hurting, the food supply chain and the American people.
And that's why I think a lot of truck drivers, they independently have dash cams that are always recording their drive. So just in case somebody does pull out in front of them and the truck driver has to slam on the brakes and can't in that amount of time because they're hauling, thousands of pounds of food and they get into a wreck, that at least they have some kind of protection.
Yeah. And we at JKC have those dash cams, and they're a lifesaver because the motorist always says it's the trucker's fault, and the police right away say, "Yeah, truck driver, you must have hit the car," and that's not always the fact. So we have these cameras, which really, really save us a lot of money, and actually have probably kept JKC in business. But there's issues. There'd be times, let's say we're driving in the center lane, and somebody decides in the right lane, I have to make a U-turn in the middle of the highway. This is how most of fatalities happen on the road. And our truck hits them, right? And they don't die, but they're paraplegics or something. They're not the same person. Even though it was their fault, and they said we pulled in front of the truck, in court, because we didn't stop, and there's no laws. They're saying you're supposed to stop for every incident. You just can't stop for every incident. We're still 25% liable, which is crazy. And if their bills are very high, and even if we want to help, to pay this 25%, you have to understand that our liability insurance is, not a lot of money. It's most trucking companies have 1 million. Most trucking companies have 2 million. The bigger companies have more because they can afford more. But that's another cost that's skyrocketing, and it's getting harder and harder to find an insurance company to give you insurance at a good rate and cover you. And especially with these atomic verdicts, I lose sleep over it all the time. It's horrible. And this is one of the things that the industry has to be protected is for something like this. These atomic verdicts are putting people out of business every day. You see it in the paper.
You're painting a picture over the last, 20, 30 minutes that we've been talking of the trucking industry not being very fun to work in anymore, that it's tougher and tougher just to keep your head above water. When my father started, it was a lot of fun, and I still think it's fun, but you're right. The problem is it's overregulated, and everybody is trying to get a piece of the companies. Even states, like for example, when we travel through states, let's say we get inspected, let's say we're going to California, we're going through Iowa, we get inspected in Iowa, right? And we pass an inspection. We pull into Nebraska and we get pulled over for an inspection. We say, hey, we just got inspected in Iowa. We're good. Trooper's going to say, hey, welcome to Nebraska. You're getting re-inspected again. And God forbid he finds something, he tickets you. They made this now a business. States make money like this. Which I think is horrible, and because it even sets truckers back more. And another, a huge negative for the trucking industry is, the police nonstop, trying to harass them, because now when we're running these electronic logbooks, it's much harder you almost can't, go over the hours because, you automatically get a violation. So now they're, trying to pull truckers over and give them inspections, because that's another way they give you tickets and generate money for the state. Well, in the short time we have left, Mike, coming off of National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, How do people out there, just the average, four-wheeler, as you guys like to say, how does the average person show a driver appreciation? How do drivers like to be shown appreciation?
Oh, if you just open the window and say, hey, I appreciate you for everything you're doing, or we see a driver on a truck stop, tell them thank you for your services. That goes a long way. Give the driver some room, when they're trying to merge. All these little things, add up real quick. There's this, wherever option you could get or chance to thank a truck driver, just thank it. Even though you scream out the window, hey, thanks for your service. All this is appreciated because, truck drivers, especially through this pandemic, feel unappreciated.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of the drivers are out there wishing that more people would say, "Hey, thanks for that." Instead, they're getting the finger because
Exactly.
the driver wants to get in front of the truck, and they think the truck's slowing them down, and they're sitting in in traffic, and they're blaming a truck driver for it. And so it seems like there's a us versus them mentality out there.
Correct. That's the problem, and one of the things, they should also do is when in these driver ed classes, we don't educate enough about the trucks. A truck, when you pull in front of a truck, it could stop, but it doesn't have the same stopping capacity as a car. There's do's and don'ts you don't do, and we just need to educate. I think it would be less accidents that way than implementing these mandates and such.
Well, Mike, I appreciate all your time. Mike Kucharski, the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking out of Chicago. Thanks so much for your insights, and thank a trucker, right?
Thank you for all your support. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much.
I've thought several times in my life that trucking is a job I could do. I always thought that that's a job I could fall back onto if I ever lose this job. The transportation guy, traffic guy job. I like driving. I like trucks. And so it seems like a win-win for me. And I like working by myself. And I'm right now just a department of one, in the traffic department because there's just me, and it's pretty much they let me do my own thing, which I do enjoy. I'm kind of a self-starter in that way. But I don't think anyone feels totally safe in their job if they're in broadcasting. People tell me at the station they would never get rid of me. I hope not, but you never know. I've seen it many times before. And so trucking might be a good way to fall back if I needed a job, especially in the short term. Look, I figure I have about 10 years left in me of any real big corporate job. My youngest daughter is in 4th grade. That gets her out of high school and into college, and then I can go do something else. I don't have any money saved up, so I'm going to have to work and try to help them get through college. So I can't just totally stop working in my early 60s. But look, I've been waking up at 2:30 every morning for a long time, and it affects your health. It affects your health in a big way. Truck drivers have health issues too. Sitting for long periods of time. A lot of them are smokers. They're drinking sugary drinks. They're just sitting. They're not really getting a lot of activity with their body. But you do get to see the country. You get to see drivers in small cars driving badly. There's some great dash cam videos out there from truckers. They have their dash cams rolling, and for good reason, because so many people will pull out in front of them, as Mike was talking about, and do bad things. And so now at least the trucking companies and the truckers have some evidence that it's not their fault that somebody pulled out in front of them and caused a wreck. But driving from Chicago to LA and back in 6 days seems like a lot of driving to me. Good money, but a lot of driving. Anyway, if you have questions, comments, if you're a trucker, let me know what you think about all this. That number, 832-303-832-0217. That number again in the description of the show. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'm Jason Luber, the traffic guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.